Welcome everyone to today's International Parking and Mobility Institute Shop Talk. I'm Kim Fernandez, IPMI's Director of Publications, and I'll be assisting our moderator with today's event. As a reminder, today's Shop Talk is being recorded and will be posted to IPMI's YouTube channel. As we get started, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box. Click the chat icon at the bottom of your screen and type and click send. We'll be monitoring the chat throughout the Shop Talk, so please use it at any time to ask questions, raise points, or share your thoughts. If you have a webcam and you're comfortable, we would love for you to please turn on your camera so we can all get to know each other a little bit and interact face to face. We're starting this event with all participants muted. Please feel free to unmute yourself to join in the conversation. To cut down on ambient noise during today's conversation, please remain muted when you're not speaking. If you're on the phone today, you can press *6 to unmute your line. Before we begin today's conversation, Dave Honorato, CAP, IPMI's chair, would like to say a few words. Dave?
Thanks, Kim. Good afternoon or good morning to those joining from the West Coast. I would like to welcome everyone to today's Shop Talk, the year ahead. With today's uncertainty due to COVID lingering on, it is always good to hear how others in the industry are responding in their path to recovery. Before I turn it over to our host, I'd be remiss if I did not recognize IPMI staff for giving us the ability to stay connected, whether it's through Shop Talk discussions, webinars, frontline training, and the forum, which is our online chat room. These are all gathering places to share information and build relationships and keep connected. Now it's my pleasure to introduce today's moderator, who is considered an industry expert, Casey Jones, CAP, with Flash Parking.
Thanks, Dave, and good afternoon and good morning or wherever you hail. I appreciate that you're here. Hard to believe that it's December and we just, many of us just came back from the IPI conference. But I just have to say, as a precursor to our Shop Talk today, thinking about being together, thinking about the future again and not being stuck in reverse, I'll tell you, for me, it was really, really invigorating. And I appreciate, that many of you that were on the call were there and thinking about the future. So it's a treat for me to be here. I'm not the star of the show. All of you are. These Shop Talks like this one, I've always found to be, some of the most impactful and informative kinds of things that we can do together. So my job here is to, really just help guide a conversation. But what's most important is getting your feedback, hearing from you, getting your ideas. And I'm going to really lean on the IPMI team, the staff, and help monitor the chat. But as Kim said, taking yourself off mute, sharing, chiming in. I'm not above calling on people, so I will absolutely take that privilege as moderator today. We just want to have a lively conversation, and we absolutely want to look forward to the new year. So I'm with Flash. I'm the Director of Customer Success, but a perennial volunteer with IPMI. And again, it's just a real privilege for me to be here today. So here's what we're going to do. I think I'm going to stop sharing, and we're going to launch our first poll. Will really set us up in how we're going to talk about our topics today. So here's what I want you to do. There's a question is, when thinking about 2022, which is the topic you're most interested in to discuss today? So what we'll do is we'll order this list. We'll take the top vote getter first, and we'll try to get through as many of these topics as we can so far. So please make your mark, put your X where you'd like it to be, and this will help us guide the conversation today. And I didn't put in here Sean Conrad. I thought maybe we could talk about Sean Conrad, but that may be in the other bucket today. So let's see here. I'm going to give it another minute or so. We've got most people that have responded. About 87% of you have chimed in so far. We're trying to push it to 100%. All right. So we're very close. One more. Good enough. Kim, let's close the poll, share those results. So it looks like we're going to talk about technology. That's the number one. Got to write this down so we can keep track. Number two would be economic recovery. All right. Number three looks like professional development. And it looks like human resources. I'm surprised. Thought more people would be talking about their human resource challenges. We can take it as it comes. And then capital projects and planning and studies. Let me ask if there was one vote for something else. I would love to hear what that something else is. If you voted for something else, could you please unmute and let me know what you were thinking? I'd love to hear your thoughts. It was Sean Conrad, wasn't it? Yep. All right. Well, I'm not hearing anyone chime in, and maybe it's in the chat box. But if you wouldn't mind just making sure that we record that, what it is that you wanted to talk about that was not on this list, I sure would appreciate it. Good enough. So our first topic is technology. And again, what we're thinking about here, folks, is like, what are your plans in 2022 with respect to technology? There could be, you might be queuing up to purchase park system or parking management. You might want to look at technology for curb space. Let's start this conversation. Who voted for technology? What are you thinking? What are you planning for in the new year as far as technology goes? And what do you, maybe more importantly, what are you hoping to get out of it? Or if you're not moving ahead on technology, maybe it's you're not purchasing something, but you're thinking, I need to learn more about technology. I need to explore, LPR on the street, or I want to learn about sensors or companies like Flash. Who knows? Let's open the conversation up. That's a joke, but let's open the conversation up about technology. Where do we want to go with it? Who wants to start? I will call on you.
I raised my hand. You didn't see my hand raised?
I didn't. I don't. Oh, Perry. Perry raised his hand. Perry, let's talk about technology. Great to see you, pal.
Hey, how are y'all doing? Hey, as we're working through this next year, this current year, we transitioned to daily rates. We're finding the limitations of technology regarding this new model, and so we're really looking at what other available technologies there are that could provide a better customer experience. Something that I'm sure many universities will agree with, that unique are one-off events where you have one-time people who come in once or twice to the campus and aren't our regular visitors, so they're visitors, and utilizing some of the technologies we have in place now. It's making it more difficult for our events. And so we're really looking at how can we make that experience better for them, and by keeping that technology going forward.
Could you explain a little bit more? Are you talking about like gate technology or software or
software? Yeah, as software. Again, we're going to many campuses. We're going to an e-permit system, and a lot of people who come, we're finding that come to campus are a little bit older, and they're having challenges with our current provider for our system. So we're looking at how can we keep the same model, but make it a better experience for our one-offs. And we're looking at a technology solution, obviously, but something that's a little bit more customer service friendly.
Thank you, Andrew, for asking that question. Let me probe a little bit, Perry. So what you've done is you've moved to a daily model for all of your parkers, but what you're saying is, in the process of doing that, did that have anything to do with the challenge that you're describing as far as visitors to campus and event attendees? I think that's what you're focused on, right? event attendees, but who are not affiliates and who are not in your system. Is that what I'm understanding?
Correct. There's limits to the technology we're using, Park Mobile, to utilizing it in an event situation. And so again, this whole situation is an experiment. And so as we learning, some of the lessons learned is that you have these one-offs, these people who don't come to campus very often, who aren't familiar with the technologies that you and I are familiar with, and that our regular affiliates are. So we need to provide a solution that's a little bit more customer friendly towards that and can address their needs while still maintaining our other model.
Okay. Thanks for the extra detail. So anyone on the call that they think they have that can offer, maybe it's not so much about a specific company or vendor or something like that, but who's accommodating special event attendees and they're happy with how it's going? And I guess, Perry, my one thing I'm not sure is how it relates to your move to daily permits, right? Is there, is that a key piece, or is that just ancillary to the situation? So let me open it up.
Yeah, it's more ancillary because, again, we based the daily rate collection on Park Mobile. We're utilizing some of their coupon codes, things like that. And, in theory, it should have worked right, but it's not. There's limitations to the technology, just that's what it is. And so we're looking at a different way of doing things and of how we deal with events and of getting folks to purchase. And as we all know, in universities, it's the big events we can take care of fine. It's the little one-offs, the library, the grandmothers of the library fund who come in every 3-4 cars, and they don't want to use Park Mobile coupon codes. They want some kind of other system, and so we're trying to address that.
Gotcha.
I have one quick comment. So I don't know if you've explored this, but I know Google has some integrations that they could offer. I know they're working with Passport on some integrations. So you don't necessarily have to have the Passport app, for instance, as you're visiting some of these locations. Google will just push it through basically for you. So there may be a possibility there to look at Google integration so they don't necessarily have to have your native app. That's one thought.
Thanks, Kevin.
So
Go ahead, Andrew.
Sorry, so I do like special events for football games for the hotel next door to the stadium, and what I've found, I try everything, right? You know what I mean? I try not to be just one, but I'm agnostic. I'll use all the different aggregators or so on, and I'm always looking for, and some of them will give you the ability to say, here, push this rate, give them a link, so before they come, here, sign here, pay, and I don't quite know. If you use, I'm assuming you're using LPR and so on. That I've tried different ones, and they will give me the ability to send that link, let them pay in advance, and then you're kind of taken care of, right? And that will help. I mean, look, you're talking about the gold standard, the 5 grandmothers, right? If any of us can get them to enter any parking facility easily going to the library fund, then we're 100%, we're a success. So I would say try everything. I've used all the big aggregators, some of the small aggregators, and some white label ones, and whatever gives me the ability for that individual location or that individual event is what I use. So
I agree. Yeah, we need to be much more broad on how we collect people's information.
Harry, this is Troy from La Crosse. Is it for those really small events, is it easier to work with the event organizer and say, hey, we need to collect those 5 plates, send it to us, we'll bill the department for a daily rate? It's kind of a way to provide even higher level of customer service. And really, it puts the onus back on that event planner to say, okay, I want to take good care of my customers, and you become a partner of that.
Yes, that's something we work on too, is being a partner. Some of the concerns are is that, again, the general way we were doing it is that instead of giving people event permits that they would give out to their guests, we're just giving them the coupon code. So the planners would pay for the parking. Excuse me. Their guests wouldn't see anything, but then the guests would have to register using the app. Of course, there's a lot of consternation from like I said, the older folks. And then the event planners want to be able to enter the plates for them. And so we're finding that the Park Mobile platform isn't really good for that type of operation. So yeah, it's a whole issue. I guess what I'm saying is that the lesson learned is that there's two separate parts of a parking operation at university. You got your dailies and you got your others. And the others are the ones that we're having a little trouble right now getting fixed.
You know, Perry, I was thinking as you were talking, and there were some conversations in Tampa about what I'm going to share, which is an interesting thing. And that is, I think we're, obviously we're becoming more and more reliant on technology. We are, basing our systems on a technology first sort of platform, yet we still have unsolved issues as far as unbanked population of customers, maybe generational issues like you've kind of described. These are tricky, right? Especially as we sort of promote more equity, right? Especially at universities, at cities, this is important. So what does the group think? Anybody have thoughts to share about the marriage of technology and equity, right? And are we leaving some folks behind? Do we just accept that and sort of move forward, recognizing that each day more and more people, I guess, have smartphones or have the ability to do transactions like, in a technology-based system. So what are people's thoughts on maybe technology and equity, kind of, and following along with how Perry started our conversation with, the elder group that's the few parkers. We could just say, that's 5 out of 1 million customers that we have each year. We're not going to worry about that. I don't hear Perry saying that. I hear Perry saying, I want to give them a great experience. It might just take something different. So technology and equity, what are your thoughts? Anybody want to share?
Look, when the iPad came out, I'm like, this is the ultimate senior citizen device. You point, you touch, right? Immediately got one for my father, and he was able to figure it out, right? And so equity comes down to our ability to deliver quality service, right? And to make it so easy that your grandmother can do it, right? So the breakdown isn't the technology. The breakdown is how we utilize the technology and the product development of that technology and so on. So I'm working with a white label provider and saying this is exactly what I want, right? Because I used to build apps, and I'm like, let's go through this. And my standard is always, can my grandmother use this? Can my mother use this? Just like when I walk into a parking garage, it's like, will my mother be comfortable walking into this garage at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night, right? And likewise, is it so easy, is it so simple that my grandmother can use it? Because they got smartphones. They know how to use smartphones. They're using FaceTime. They're using this stuff. So the failure comes down on the kind of product delivery level. And I think it's up to all of us to lean on our providers to do the best possible job to make the technology as usable as possible.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm going to push back on you a little bit, Andrew, because I really respect you and know we could have a spirited discussion. But, the most recent iPhone retail is over $1,000. How does that factor? And you're absolutely right. I agree with you 100% about the intuitive nature of technology, right? The most successful is going to be that which is easiest to use and intuitive, even a complicated thing.
Hey,
But-
Casey, when you're done, I couldn't find my hand on my, speaking of technology, I couldn't find the little hand to click on. So
It's at the end of your arm, Catherine, at the end of your arm.
No, but the little clicky thing.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So this is a great question because this is something that I really, my team and I, when I was at the city of Newark and one of my clients at Newark Transit District, we're grappling with because we're in a transition phase, in my opinion. I mean, if it was up to me, I would do everything on mobile technology because it's very intuitive to me and to a lot of my colleagues and my teams. But when you're working in municipal government, now you're dealing with the public, and not everybody, not only maybe doesn't have access to it or doesn't have cell phones, or they're using flip phones, or they just don't have cell phones, period, or mobile phones. They don't have, there's a digital divide, so they don't have access to that kind of stuff. And they don't know how to use it. And they're in certain generations, they're just not comfortable with it. As we advance, yes, it's going to be less and less. So the way we did it, we constantly pushed the mobile technology, and we saw huge growth in that. But we continued to have, first we started with single space meters, and then we went to multi-space meters. And we continue to do that because of the population that we dealt with. So on the transit side, we're also offering this rider's choice on demand, same day service for the ADA, the paratransit. And we've partnered with Uber, and then, but that's mobile, that's again through your cell phone. So again, dealing with that type of population, which is many elderly and ADA, we then, to comply, and this is more compliance, but even on the equity side, to comply with FTA rules, we've partnered with another provider to provide wheelchair accessible, but also most of the people are calling in to get those same day rides. So I think we're in a transition. We're going to get there, but I don't think we just have to be in a transition until this technology, until people catch up to the technology. I don't know how else to put it, but that, to me, that's how that's where we're at with technology and equity.
Yeah, and thanks for that, Catherine. And I think it goes back to maybe where we started with Perry, and that is, at least what I think is, 5 parkers out of a big number. That's a small thing, but maybe the best that we can do is to acknowledge that not everyone, we're building systems for the 90%, and we can't forget about the 10% in what we do. And if that means expending a little more energy, effort, on the 10%, so that we don't lose those folks, and then we continue to have conversations about, how we can address equity. Maybe that's, that's the way that we can move forward, right? So we've got other topics to cover. I'm going to ask another poll question here, and this is to give your sense of, on this topic, technology, I want your read on, this is a fairly easy one, but I want your read on, how do you feel 2020 is going to go for you with respect to technology? So would you consider yourself 0 to 60 or in the fast lane, or you're kind of neutral, don't know, or, oh my gosh, we're still going backwards, stuck in reverse? And you'll see this poll for the rest of the topics that we have here. And once we close this one out, we'll move on to economic recovery. So give this, I want to get at least 75% of responses. We're at 57 here. Please weigh in.
Casey, while we're waiting, we have a couple of comments in chat.
Thank you.
Allison said a part of this is also setting expectation with visitors, which may be more difficult than finding a technology that fits all needs. And Precise Parklink shared, let me know where I can find a payphone.
Right. Good point. Yeah, that's a good point. And I think people use ATMs all the time, no matter what. So, all right, let's close our poll here and share the results, if you wouldn't mind, Kim. I'm really encouraged by this. No one is stuck in reverse. No one is stuck in reverse. Fantastic. All steam ahead for 57% of the folks weighing in. So thanks for that. All right, let's move on to our next topic, and that will be economic recovery. So this is a difficult one, right? I mean, we've been through an unbelievable, tumultuous period of fits and starts. I will share with you, just to kind of get the conversation going. So, my company collects, we have information, about our clients, and we look at transactions, we look at revenue, We look at sort of reservations for events and bookings, and then also sort of traditional transactions that occur at parking facilities in the Flash family. And what we're seeing, not completely across the board, but for the most part, is we have surpassed pre-COVID numbers. And you know, when you stretch out, when you have data, sort of the 20-month period, you can absolutely see the Delta variant impact, and you know, and then moving into so Omicron, and now where we're at. But it looks to me, on aggregate, like a lot of you are in a position that's more favorable than pre-COVID. So I want to just check that. I want to. That's you know, not a zillion data points. That's a handful of data points. Tell me where you're at. What are you thinking? Is that true? Does that ring true with you? Does it ring true with every sort of category of parker or parking that you offer? Maybe events are up where, you know, dailies or monthlies, you know, what does that look like? Weigh in here if you would. Maybe John Hamlin, let me call on you, John. I know in Pasadena, you're doing great things down there. Let me put you on the spot, pal. And how are things for you?
We're doing well. We're tracking right near pre-pandemic levels on our transient parkers in the garages and then on street. In a majority of our meter districts, we're doing really well. Where we're seeing the decline is in our monthly parkers. We're down at least 50% throughout our system in monthly garage parkers, if not more, depending on the garage. And we attribute that directly to work from home and hybrid schedules and people just not returning to the office. I was just in a meeting hearing our commercial real estate outlook is actually looking pretty good in terms of occupancy trending forward. So hopefully that translates to more people coming in and parking, but we are seeing requests for I don't know, non-traditional, if you will, monthly parking setups, you know, for those hybrid workers not wanting to pay the full amount for a monthly permit, and we're working on solutions for that.
John, thank you. Interestingly, in my community in Boise, one of the pieces of data that's been tracked, like, I don't know if it's weekly or you know, it's very frequently, are the activity in Matt's garages. So Matt, can I put you on the spot and ask the same question?
Sure.
And I guess it's, so I don't look back too much, and I tried to promise that I wasn't going to do that, but I sort of set this, this question up that way to look a little back. But it's been invaluable, Matt, like for you to be pushing information to the media like that, and for the media to be, you know, that's an economic indicator in our community that people read about, and, you know, not just the parking nerds like Matt and I. So my question is this, circling back, you know, where are you at sort of compared to pre-COVID? And let's look forward to 22. What are you thinking? Where are things going to go? What's your crystal ball tell you about parking in Boise in 2022?
Sure. So just real quick background. We started tracking weekly pretty early on because every week has, you know, 7 days and a weekend to it, whereas months there's some variation there. And it also gave us, you know, early on when we didn't know what was going on, it gave us a good frequency of checks. So, and your timing is great on this question, Casey, because I was just digging in the data the last couple of days. So while we're still below, we have 6 garages, about 3,200 spaces. And while we're still below pre-pandemic in capacity and revenue, we're probably at about 80 to 85%. Our 2 core garages closest downtown that have the most transient usage and around the most retail, they are already up above pre-pandemic for both occupancy and it's a little bit hard to tell, but they're at or coming close to exceeding that revenue. Our commuter garage is still well below pre-pandemic, 10th and Front. Another garage, it's kind of a mix. It's off, but I think it has more to do with a lot of construction of the retail there. So we're seeing different things in different garages that are only blocks apart. Certainly the more commuter heavy garages have not recovered, and probably because of work from home.
So let me keep you in the spotlight, Matt. 2022. And I'm going to ask you this question to start it off, but I'd love to hear other folks' thoughts on this. Tell me by category, maybe transient, a special event, and then let's end with monthly parkers. What's your, anticipation of those categories? And with monthly parkers, sorry, this is a very long question. I'm imagining maybe some permanent percentage reduction in monthlies due to permanent changes in telecommuting. And I have a number in my head. I don't want to preempt you. If you think there is one.
Yeah.
What's 2022 look like?
So monthly permits, I think, is going to more than recover. Now, occupancy of monthlies, how many of them are using those permits? That's a different question. We had 2,700, right around 2,700 monthly permits at the start of the pandemic. Dropped down to just below 2,200. Now we're at about 2,500. But we also sold a garage, which had about 100 monthly permits in it. So we're only 100 off of where we were pre-pandemic. And I think, Omicron notwithstanding, I think in 22, a lot of companies and employers are going to start phasing out work from home, maybe not completely, but getting people back in the office. So I would expect our total permit sales to recover. How much those permits are getting used, though, I think is still going to be off a little bit.
That's interesting. So people are still purchasing permits, but they may not be using them as frequently. It sounds like it might be time for you to increase your rates. Just kidding.
I'm not.
So go ahead, Matt.
I think it is time to increase rates before we have a lot of full garage issues.
Yeah, actually, and as as I was saying that, maybe there's some wisdom in my joke, the timing of, a decision like that. I see two university friends here on the call. That was, Pasadena and Boise, the epicenters of municipal parking in the universe. But Moira and Lisa, I would love to get your thoughts. Let's talk about asking that same question with respect to the university environment here. So where are you at relative to pre-pandemic, and by category, if you don't mind, staff, faculty, students, maybe visitors, whatever, transient. What does 2022 look like? Moira, if you don't mind going first, and then we'll hop to Lisa at Old Dominion.
Thanks, Casey. For us, the numbers look good, but we're in a hole. And the hole is because during COVID, we lost about $3.5 million. And then at the start of this school year, the chancellor said that we could not raise any fees. And so any maintenance projects and any building had to get put off. Any extra things had to get put off. And so when you don't do those major maintenance things for a couple of years, you really start to really kind of dig the hole. Residential permits, we are up for residential students. Commuter permits were about the same. Staff were down about 5%. The interesting thing about our commuter permits is that we have not run out of parking spaces. The kids have purchased them, but I think there's a lot more kids doing Zoom classes than the university has told us. And so on our campus, it looks like there's a lot of commuter spaces, but our university also has the largest freshman class, and we have 8,000 students in the dorm. So we have a painful part of residential parking, but we haven't run out of it. What we've run out of is convenient parking. And so the kids are parking in the wrong places and getting tickets and getting really frustrated. So it's been a challenging year. And basically we've had 2 freshman classes because the previous year kids, a lot of them were on Zoom. And so then you have all these kids on campus that really have no clue, and their expectation is to park right next to their dorms. So we haven't had the call yet for I only want Monday, Wednesday, and Friday permits. I think that may be coming in the future, but we haven't stepped off of that bridge yet. So that's what's going on at UT.
Great. Thanks, Moira. Appreciate that. Lisa.
Actually, here at Old Dominion, it's very much the same as Moira is reporting. We have far more residents this year than we've had historically. With that said, we don't generally sell permits to freshmen. Well, let me say, we don't encourage it. We've been very forgiving this year, however, and kind of turning a blind eye to those purchases. Faculty and staff is hugely down, 15% or so. We were put in a position to try to offer options because some faculty, staff, well, students as well, are taking online as well as in-person classes. We've introduced not only the daily and the monthly, but we added weekly permits into the mix, and allow students and faculty staff alike to make those purchases. We had our condition assessment reports completed the end of 2019, and we're getting ready to send out bids early 2020, and have had to put that on hold completely. And at that point, we were looking at a little over $3 million in anticipated capital repairs. To date, nothing has been done. We have invested in having those condition assessments done again in hopes that to try to mitigate anything that maybe has surfaced or has worsened over time. And hopefully by the spring, we'll have our bid packages out again, so that we can try to tackle those. But from a revenue standpoint, we're in a very challenging position. Our commuter permit sales are what really carry our revenue, and we just don't have it. We don't have commuters. We're down more than 50%. I thought, in fact, I was getting ready to add to the chat box a while ago when someone was talking about telework coming to an end in 2020. That would help us, but for all the time students wanted online classes and didn't have everything they wanted, now they have it. They have the best of both worlds, and without those commuters coming back to class, we're just to campus. We're in a pickle. We're at a point where we are. For all the forgiveness we had across the board, whether it was for an event, whether it was for a meeting, whether it was for those 4 grandmas coming to the campus, we are at a point now where we are having to look at every penny to monetize it for those that are our visitors. And it's a challenge, and we've been told too, no increases. So we didn't have any increases for calendar year 20, 21, and coming into 22. So needless to say, we're trying to load our gun with all of the forgiveness that we've been doing over the years, so that there's value to it and someone comes on board. We've been asked by our budget office to address specifically safety related issues. So whether it's the pedestrian crosswalks, whether it's our safe ride system, our emergency phones, what types of, the weight of those expenditures on our budget. And possibly because it is student-based, it's across the board, it's not parking specific, or there's consideration that we might get some relief on that. But we're very early in that exercise. I couldn't even tell you how that will play out.
Lisa, thank you for that. And we have some of the finest consultants on this call, and I'm going to put them on the spot for just a moment, and then we'll transition to our next topic. But I see Kevin White, I see David Lieb, Nicole Chinea. Let me just put you on the spot for a moment here. Are there, and if you could just, in maybe one idea about revenue replacement, like what one idea would you give to a university or a municipal client that, this is a tough question, I acknowledge that, but what do you think? David, let me put you on the spot. What comes to mind? What one thing would you be suggesting to your clients to help them promote revenue recovery?
Hey, Casey, thanks. I think that monetizing the curb is one of the tools that is coming to the fore. So much change in how the curb has been used through the pandemic. So much more being delivered. So many more pickups and drop-offs. It's not just a way to raise revenue, but it's a way to control that high demand space, whether it's micromobility or transit or shuttles or food deliveries or Uber and Lyft. That may be a way to generate some revenue.
Okay, thank you, David. Nicole, how about you? Do you have something that comes to mind?
Well, I agree with David, but I think it's the key that's important to that is finding the value of that real estate, right? So one, determining what the curb's being used for, but then finding that sweet spot and the value and how to relay that into that revenue recovery is kind of what we're working towards in a lot of our efforts.
Great. Thank you, Nicola. And last but not least, Kevin, the benefit of going last, they might have stolen your ideas, but what do you think? What would you be advising your clients?
So I've heard a couple of people talk about kind of flexible commute options kind of in response to some of the changing work dynamics. I think there's way more appetite for that among customers than maybe we're giving it credit for. We've seen even pre-pandemic an increased appetite for pay-as-you-go style parking, particularly on university campuses, and those spaces are making 3-4 times the amount of revenue per space than a typical permitted space. And in fact, in some of our projects, we've actually been able to analyze data, and we're seeing permitted customers, students, faculty that have long-term permits but are actually paying the pay-as-you-go rate. So they're actually double dipping, or the university is double dipping with those customers. And in some places we've looked, we're talking thousands of dollars per space those spaces can actually bring in. So, and that goes for the municipal market too. I think there's more appetite for increased flexible kind of dynamic daily pay-as-you-go style options for customers that can drive revenue than maybe we're thinking at the moment.
Great. Thank you for letting me put you on the spot. I appreciate it. Go ahead, Andrew.
Can I jump in on that? Because I think that there's tremendous opportunity in disruption, and obviously we're in a period of disruption. And what Kevin was saying, there's the opportunity to, for example, use FlexPass to sell more at less, right? So if my regular rate is $200 for a monthly parker, and I can give them a FlexPass for $150, right? That gives them, say, 12 or 13 entries a month. That what we can help the managers and the real estate customers do is fill that space more often. So if they have, if the typical office, 10,000 square feet is 100 people or whatever it is, now they can get 150 people into that same square footage by having people work different days. So I've lowered my rate by $50, but I'm selling more of that. So there's an opportunity for us to make more money if we're smart about how we approach it. We're letting the individual consumer save, but now they're getting more use out of their office space, and we're getting more use out of our parking space. Yep. If that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. Thank you for that. So let's wrap up this topic with another poll. Here's the question: how do you see things in 2022 with respect to economic recovery? Are we in the fast lane, stuck in neutral, or sorry, in neutral or stuck in reverse? How are you feeling about 2022 and economic recovery? And Kim, if there are chat items on this topic, maybe now would be a good time to talk through some of that. Anything?
I haven't seen any. We had one. Cindy was asking, what does economic recovery look like for university in comparison to municipalities?
I hope we got to a little bit of that with Lisa and Moira. Oh, thanks. Good enough. All right. So we can keep rolling. Let's end the poll and share this one. I hope we've been doing that. Are you seeing the poll results now, folks? Give me a nod. Super. So this one's kind of split, actually. Slightly more people said they thought we were going to kind of be in neutral. Maybe that's a reflection of kind of some of the hole that that we've found ourselves in and coming out of it. But pleased to see no one thinks we are stuck in reverse. So, all right, let's move on to our next topic, and that is professional development. So, interesting thinking about, I spent some time on state and regionals, and of course, having just come back from IPMI, those are opportunities, that we've taken advantage of for professional development. But it would seem like to me that, there might be a backlog. In other words, maybe we were able to do a lot of, sort of webinars and virtual kind of professional development, but, and that's great. And I think we're problem solvers when we've done that, right? Take advantage of the time and technology given the circumstances. But there's nothing like being back together, right? And it's not just learning, but it's building our network. So I'm curious on this topic, especially for those of you who identified this as your most important topic. What does it look like for you going forward? What are your professional development needs? What do you plan right out of the gate in 2022 to help your teams be as successful as they possibly can? Who raised this issue as most important that would like to start the conversation?
Casey, I can mention something because this was my top one. I think for someone in my role where I'm not as technical, but I'm more on the business development marketing side, I think for professional growth within my realm of parking is more collaboration with the people that are not necessarily in my state, and with us being able to travel and collaborate face to face. I think that that's a huge factor that a lot of people have been missing, needing, hungry for. I think we all know that being at IPMI, how great it was to give somebody a hug or a handshake or a elbow pump. So I think for moving forward, I think we need to be able to have that face-to-face time with the people that make our job and our companies roll and get moving, because we've been deprived of that. So just my 2 cents.
Well, and I think you had 5 green bands on at IPMI, which meant, you wanted 5 hugs from everybody. So I'm with you there, Brittany. There's nothing like, as I said, there's nothing like that face-to-face interaction that helps whatever learning we are, but builds our community. So who else wants to weigh in on this topic, and what are your specific plans, maybe? And maybe another question is, there are reps from state and regional associations here, and certainly, what can IPMI be doing? How can we, what evolution has to take place? Is it, party like it was 2019 or maybe February of 2019, or is it something different, right? Where should we be going as far as professional development goes? Who wants to share? I will call on you.
All right, I'll pipe up since you already called on me once, Casey. I think, communication tactics and skills are something that we've always prided ourselves in this industry. But I think the methods for which we're doing it now have changed a bit, and we've had to get a little bit creative internally as to what Brittany mentioned, but also externally. And so I think for our teams, I'd be interested in what are those new skills? What are new things that we need to be thinking about when we're communicating with the client remotely? Project delivery has transitioned significantly to remote. And so during COVID, it was a hard turn. You were learning as you go how to deliver a project from being an ops person doing a study boots on the ground to relying on Google or technology or the client to provide information. So I don't think this is something that's going to solely go away. So from a from a professional development standpoint, I personally am interested in sharpening our skills to be able to deliver the better product rather than the reactiveness, which we saw during COVID.
Thanks, Nicole. Chuck, I think you were weighing in. You have a thought you can share? Are you with us still, Chuck? Sorry. That's awesome. Do this for me if you would. In the chat box, and I think we've had a couple people that have weighed in so far as we've been talking about this. Add the specific topic, professional development topic that you would like to that you'd like to focus on. And I think Perry had one, community engagement. Chuck, are you've got something to share? He keeps coming on, so maybe that's anybody else on this topic? Go ahead, Catherine.
Was that Chuck? I just heard something. So yeah, the community engagement, I was just going back and forth on this little chat. That is so critical to on the vendor side, on the private side, to understand. I can't begin to tell you how many times I had to explain on the municipal side, and I'm sure somewhat on the university side, it's about process and engaging the community and trying to make them understand what you're doing, what your ideas are. That is so important to getting anything done. It won't work otherwise. I've been through too many implementations in my municipal career, and when there was a lot of outreach and a lot of engagement, a lot of hand holding, it typically works. So I think teaching that and where maybe some type of panel discussions or whatever, I think that's really important. So everybody's working together towards the same goal,
Yeah, fantastic.
Can I double down on that? Because on the in the commercial side, the same is absolutely true, right? I tell my managers, I don't want your head down counting spaces only. You have to have your head up. You have to go out. You have to meet with the community. You have to engage with the community. Find out what their needs are and say, oh, okay, we can help you with that, right? And that pays dividends over and over and over again. They can now come to us and say, hey, can you help us with? Oh, yeah, sure, right? And it's a great opportunity. And then I saw that someone else wrote in marketing, social media, and outreach. It's the same thing. It all ties together, right? So I think that community outreach is so important. We are a customer service industry, and truthfully, we haven't really acted like it as a whole industry in the past.
Yeah. Thanks, Andrew. Troy, you were trying to chime in. I know you entered something in the chat box. Anything else you'd like to add, Troy? Victor? Go ahead.
No, I did put in the chat. Again, I think that having almost blended learning, just like universities are dealing with their students, there's nothing like the in-person for those direct interactions. And I attended my first IPMI last week and really enjoyed that opportunity to meet with colleagues and also vendors. But I really think that the virtual is so budget friendly, and it really helps bring professional development to a lot more people in my organization.
Yeah, thank you for that, and welcome to the family. Gosh, we're glad you went to the conference last week and you came to this week. Much appreciated.
If I can interrupt you for just 1 second, we have about 5 minutes left.
Kim, thank you very much.
Casey, this is Moira.
Go ahead, Moira.
So I was the one that put in marketing, social media outreach. In my past, I have had actually job titles of outreach coordinator, outreach manager, client relationship manager. And one of the things that I do with my job as the communications manager is I say, I'm an interpreter. I interpret to campus what we can do, and then I interpret back to our managers what campus wants and try to help with the disconnect that can be there. But in so many places, the communications role is relegated to the executive director or the assistant director, and not a lot of time and energy is spent on that. And so, and I think that as a communications professional, I'm not a social media guru, and I need more training in that. But I want to learn from other institutions, other business industries. What is books doing? What is fashion doing? How can we get creative? I was just in a social media roundtable yesterday at our university, and they were talking about how they're going to engage kids. Oh, we're having a long winter break because they're going to do a mini term, which nobody's going to come to. Anyways, how are they going to keep the kids engaged over this entire time? And so I started thinking, how can we keep people engaged? And little things like, how many loads of laundry are you taking home to your parents? Nothing to do with parking, nothing. But it's a way to get your name out there. And how do we prime the pump? How do we keep our name out there and show of what we're doing and how we're serving the community? And I think that that's a huge disconnect, as someone talked about earlier, of the community. They don't know what we do because we don't tell them. And I think that's where we need to get a lot better in the storytelling.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Okay, so with that, let's launch our last How Are You Feeling poll about professional development. What's your plan? What's your view looking forward? And I hope it includes New Orleans. I'm just saying. I do think that there are, and we're over 50% here, so thank you.
Poll as last time.
That's the same question that we've had a couple of times. Yeah, different topic. This is on professional development. How are we feeling? But I do think, certainly IPMI, there was a comment about, our workforce is dealing with aggressive folks, antagonistic. And I'll give a plug to my friend Cindy Campbell, who did a fantastic session on when enough is enough. And some of you have seen that. I think it's just superb. Every organization that deals with clients or customers in the field, for sure, must absolutely take Cindy's session. Get signed up for that. So let's close this poll here and share the results. This is the first one that we're going backwards in professional development or in the topic. That's really interesting. Very first one. But I hope you can all find, whether it's virtual or in-person ways, to help build our teams. There's a lot of topics that we didn't get a chance to talk to today. Human resources, capital planning, capital projects and planning. But I really have appreciated the time that we've spent today and hope we can continue to have conversations in the future. There's a lot of ways that we can do that, starting with the forum. And with that, I thank you for your time and your responses, and I will turn it back over to Kim from this point forward. But happy holidays, everyone, and thank you so much.
Casey, thank you so much for leading this great conversation, and thank you to all of you for being here and participating with us. We do hope you'll log on to Forum and continue the conversation. If you have any issue logging in, you can reach out to me directly, and we will work it out for you. Our next Shop Talk is on January 19th. We also have a lot of webinars and frontline sessions and all sorts of things planned for 2022. You can read about those at parking-mobility.org/calendar. And don't forget that registration is already open for New Orleans in July, and we can't wait to see you there. Thank you all for being with us today. That concludes our program. You can now disconnect.
Thanks, everybody.